Welcome to Decentral Lens, where lifelong friends Blutoshi and Disco navigate the ever-evolving crypto landscape. With genuine curiosity and a commitment to nuance as our North Star, we offer clear-eyed exploration. Our goal? To empower listeners with the tools and insights needed to flourish in this decentralized age.
All right, here we go. Disco, how are you? I'm going to throw to you quick today because I always throw slow and I talk a lot. So how you doing?
I'm in an extremely good place today. I don't know, like it may be astrological, it may just be spring season, summer season. I'm feeling light, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling like we have a lot of opportunity. I feel like there's a ton to get into, and I don't know, I think we'll talk about it more and more, but I kind of feel like, I don't know, I feel pretty excited about the opportunities that are kind of being presented to us from things that are really no fault of, Bitcoin or no fault of crypto overall. And I think we got a nice chance for some good things to happen in the next week to 10 days.
So you're excited about this little Bitcoin pullback.
Dude,
damn.
I would be such a hypocrite if I wasn't, because I had just that panic FOMO, like, dude, the bus left and I'm never going to get any again. And, like 0.1's going to cost so much moving forward. It's like, I'm not saying that I'm sitting there running around, buying bags and bags of it, but like, it's nice to snipe a little bit. And it's nice to kind of look at, some of the opportunities out there and be able to see it at a slightly lower entry point. So yeah, I bring it on, and it's across the board. Like, as I say, and you've kind of indicated this with the whole, kind of notion of Bitcoin's going to do what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin didn't do anything wrong. Bitcoin's just presenting us with another opportunity. And that's part of the reason I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's coping, by the way. Like, I thought, like, am I just coping? Am I just, talking myself into feeling better about it? No, like, I can say unequivocally that I think this is a tremendous opportunity that I didn't expect.
Are you looking for opportunities just to buy more Bitcoin or to buy more, like ordinals and runes and
everything.
all that stuff? All right. So your bags
everything.
Yeah, I made the mistake. I dollar costed average in when when the ETFs went live with all the retirement accounts, but I dollar cost averaged in very quickly. So now I'm like, and the good news is I caught a lot in the 40s, caught a lot in the 50s. So it's not like I'm upside down, but I just dollar cost average in, and now there's not as many dollars to cost average in anymore because I did it in like 6 weeks instead of doing it over 6 months. But who knows? My bags are packed, and there's a couple ordinals I want to get. Everything's been so rune focused now that going back to ordinals probably isn't a bad call. Like, so many of the collections are so cheap because everyone's focused on runes. But now look at runes, like mempool fees they're dirt cheap again. So like the promise of runes and ordinals kind of being the savior for the security of Bitcoin, like, and we're probably in a lull. You had to have a pullback, and, nothing reached $1 billion in the rune side, but, so I think DOG reached 500 million till it retraced to something in the 300 million. So, I mean, if you take a step back, that's pretty damn big. But, I think Solana, I don't follow Solana tokens as much, but I think several of those, I'm sure they're not $1 billion anymore, but maybe they are, but a lot of those have reached $1 billion. But I think we're, it's such a cliche, but we're early. I mean, we're early, and we're having fun. So I don't care.
Yeah. And I think, and I think that's the most important thing. We look at, we had all this build up to, runes. We had all this build up to halving. We have all this build up from ETFs. And then, like, last week, the Hong Kong ETFs hit, and it was a little bit of a muted response, I guess, is kind of the net of
wasn't
that.
it?
Yeah,
and just so you know, I'm not looking at them. I'm actually looking at my phone. I'm trying to just make sure this surreal thing of posting, like, just making sure post it in different groups, like, hey, we're live, so if you want to check it out, just go check it out. But it's like real time posting while we're talking on the network of X that we're talking about. So and the YouTubes. So anyone's watching live YouTube, welcome.
And let me just parrot off of that a little bit, that we need to encourage everybody to interact. If you are watching or you happen to be watching on X, if you click into the actual story or the actual box, then we can see the questions and you can interact and ask, make comments. And we have some friends who tend to do that, and we love it. We also want to encourage everybody to retweet, just to try to let people know that we're out there. If you want to smash and grab, anything that I can come up from that side of it, we'll certainly take that. And as I say, we want this to be as much of a two-way show as possible. I feel a bit underwhelmed now with my static background. So, I do have a little bit of competitive FOMO with Blutoshi, right. And I do have a massive green screen that will be hung and utilized moving forward, not to get into how the sausage is made, but stay tuned. There's going to be some flashy graphics and some upgrades coming from that perspective in the upcoming weeks.
Teasing the green screen, because I'm sure everyone's waiting with bated breath. Like, what's
yes,
this
I told you I'm on one today, dude. I couldn't be happier. I mean, I don't know if it's the moon or whatever the heck it is. I'm feeling giddy, and I'm not going to say giddy as a schoolgirl because that got called out before.
That's already.
I'm overall giddy.
When Decentral Ends gets bigger, it's already going to be our first T-shirt. But just to show what's behind my green screen. Oh crap! I forgot. I had to pull the green screen. But I have the awesome Bitcoin consortium thing on the wall. But then I'd have to ungreen screen the green screen. So we'll show that to folks. We'll show that to folks later. But for no introduction, if you don't know me, look at that green screen hand. That's like, I know, not bad. But I'm Blutoshi. To my right is Disco, and we love doing the show. We do it because we're curious, and we love being here. So
yeah. And it's interesting. We've been talking a lot and working on things on different fronts for the past couple of weeks for sure. And we haven't really. Last week was just a blast. It was incredible to actually have Scribe in person and have a three-way conversation. So mad shouts to Scribe for that. He's kind of the guru and the go-to for like anything. Like before you come up with a question and you ask him, he's like, yeah, I was actually working on that this morning and I have this, figured
just read my tweet from this morning and quit asking me questions. Well, of course he would never say that.
Just follow me, dude.
No, he'd explain the whole thing to you like for a half hour, and then he'd be like, oh, and I wrote a tweet about it too this morning. So
by the way, keep up with me.
Yeah. No, Scribe's 100%. Awesome. And that show last week was so much fun. And I think Disco and I realized like we love doing the shows with each other. We grew up with each other. For those who don't know, we started doing this like 5 or 6 months ago. I've been in crypto longer, 2015. I thought it was 2014. I swear it was, but my books say 2015 and Disco's like 2021. And then it was kind of the difference of our perspectives and stuff. And we both learned a lot there. But now with runes and ordinals and obviously Bitcoin, our focus has come more here. But today our stories aren't as there's some macro stuff for Bitcoin, which we can get into for probably briefly, but there's a lot of crap going on other chains that's it's definitely newsworthy, and it's definitely something I want to talk about.
There's a lot at the buffet, so let's clear the way. We'll
Disco
work
likes
through
his salacious gossip, if you will, people.
Well, let's work through the crudité. We'll have the pickled carrots and whatnot at the supper club and wet the palate. But so basically, it's odd that I'm this happy. And
do they have pickled carrots at supper club? Seriously? Like, I don't mind pickled carrots. Is that a supper?
No, it starts with it starts with like a whole pickled, crudité plate is generally the first roll into there. That's giving some of my Wisconsin nostalgia from growing up. But I will say it's weird that I feel so giddy, and that I'm going to start the story with April was the worst month for pricing for crypto overall since the FTX crash. And, now we're looking, I don't know what the time of I am right now, but I think we were sniffing 57,000 for Bitcoin price. And I don't think that it's Bitcoin's fault. I don't think it's representative of any issue. And I do think that it's an opportunity, if you have the means, to nibble a little bit and to stack some more sats and to open up your opportunities moving forward. As I said, the Hong Kong ETF launch was a bit of a meh, it was a bit of a, they had, I have it in there and I don't know if anyone saw it, but like, it was pretty interesting, kind of the pageantry of when they released it on their stock exchange and how they did it. It's culturally just interesting to see the difference, but it certainly didn't do, what the US one did. But again, you can't count it because it doesn't have mainland. So like it's kind of a tough, apples and oranges to what we got. An interesting part
You're
of it
going
is
too quickly for me because you're very prepared for this show and I'm very unprepared. I need to make sure I learn stuff. So wait, so mainland China, you're saying, so the Hong Kong ETF came out. We know it was more of a trickle. It was more of a story, just again, Bitcoin eating world, but but this was more of like a nibble. This was like the goldfish snack packages that you put in your kids' lunches, and you open the bag and it's all filled with air, and you get like 7. You're like, how much am I paying for these goldfish, for these 7 goldfish for my kid? And then where am I disposing of the plastic? Because China will not take the United States plastic anymore. That's been for a couple of years. So all that recycling that you see happens outside where the 2 different trucks. From what I've heard, they all wind up at the same place. So sometimes you don't want to poke through the through the illusion of what's really happening. So mainland China cannot partake so far in the Hong Kong thing. So Hong Kong is now owned again by China, and it's a free market, quote unquote. But is it, right?
Well, that's a show right there. Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to parse through that.
I stumped you there. Wow, I just caught you.
I was on a roll, and then I got clipped. I got a little. I
need you to slow down so I can ask
chop block.
I need to ask my 100,000 questions.
Well, let me answer the question from the ETF perspective. Is that I think it's more of a symptom of the success of the US ETF launch, and we're sitting here now, looking at China, which took in 123 million for the Bitcoin one on day one, which makes it like a really successful historical launch within the Hong Kong market. So I think that we're just so BlackRocked out and so, fidelity'd out on, kind of how big and massive that launch was. And I think that that's a big part of, what we're looking at overall when we see this opportunity with a little bit of a dip in the overall pricing is we're kind of got a little bit of the ETF hangover, and we kind of knew that would happen. We kind of have a little bit of a halvening hangover, right? And it wasn't necessarily the same. It didn't like go down prior to the halving like it has historically. So I think we have those hangovers going on right now. And we also have the fact that the Fed hasn't really figured out how they're going to handle the stickiness of inflation. So it's just a big bag of opportunity, I guess, is the way I look at it. And again, my theme of today is Bitcoin did nothing different than it did a week ago, a month ago, 5 years ago. It's going to do what it does, and that gives us this opportunity. So that's my kind of soliloquy / soapbox to look at this as an opportunity and to have some conviction. And when you look at opportunities with conviction, then that's a great way to kind of feel positive about where we're headed for sure.
Yeah. So the big net is, it sounds like you're saying, is these with Bitcoin going to 57 for you, it's a buying opportunity, but these are big headwinds coming in because inflation. It sounds like with interest rates, he can't pivot yet because of inflationary fears are just too high. And, it's no shock. The U.S. keeps printing money. Somebody just told me, I have not looked at the stat. My number in my head of our debt was 34 trillion, but I was just with some buddies Monday night, and he said, no, dude, that's from last quarter. It's 37 trillion now. I'm like, another 3 trillion a quarter? It's just like, tra-la-la-la-la, like 37 trillion. How many countries have a GDP of 37 trillion? Maybe like 2, 3?
Yeah, like
not many.
You can count them on a hand, I'm sure. Yeah, it's absurd, and we can go and we can talk about that. Maybe we need to look at that as a whole section, look at the politics of what's going to go on and how things are going to really be impacted moving forward with an election. But you do see different, strategies in terms of kind of marketing to the bases, right? So there's a lot of, kind of spending money and relieving debt, those sort of things coming out from one of the sides. And then you have, the other side's looking at like, hey, why are we spending all this? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm interested to see how Chair Powell, addresses things in a couple hours in terms of the macro and what their thought is there. It's so weird that like if this dude just has like a slightly different tone, it'll move the overall stock market so much. And again, I just think Bitcoin doesn't give a crap. It doesn't matter. So that's why I kind of just put my little helmet on and get excited about these opportunities.
What kind of helmet is it? Like Evel Knievel, like red, white, and blue, or?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's certainly a large helmet, so it would probably be custom because I was the gentleman when they would dole out hats for the baseball teams and stuff that had to be like, will this actually go on the last rung, and can I actually fit this on my large size melon? So
You're a
it'll be
last
large.
rung guy, so you're with those little
Oh
plastic
yeah,
things.
it's the worst.
What do you have, like
an
an alien protrusion in the back of your head? Like, my God,
No,
I
just
think I
have
was
a
the
very
opposite.
large.
Like I
I
was
have a
never
very
that kid.
large
It was
cottage head.
embarrassing when the overlap was like way over, like super tight, where it was just like a little teacup on your head. I was always somewhere in the middle. I'm pretty skinny, but I guess my head was always somewhere in the middle sized. Maybe a seven hat.
That's a piece of perspective which I have no grounding towards. I have no experience on that. Mine would tend to look like yarmulkes in almost all cases. So it was slightly disheartening, and it's a cross I've had to bear.
So if you get a hat, like there's some serious shopping.
First check.
Is there a store for like big and large head hats? Like some web shop, like big and tall and wide head. You know,
I've made it work, and maybe that's why I need to watch my exposure to the sun, because again, the face is then a bit of a sundial and definitely attracts many of the rays. So I don't know if I need like something to block it or not. But as I say, I think that there's just a lot of opportunities. I don't know how much we need to get into the macro side of things. It's interesting though. We've said this before, and I think it's cool that Sailor just keeps on sailing. And I saw a note that, they just bought more, and it makes him now equate to having 1% of the overall circulating supply. So, it's kind of like be like Mike, just keep focused. When you have a chance to get more, stay focused on the end game and the long goal. And I don't really know what else we need to kind of hammer on that side of it. Big crypto story that I think, we should at least address before we get into some of the other things we want to talk about is yesterday, CZ got sentenced, and there was a lot, I think on the speculative site or whatever, it was like, is he going to get under a year? I think he could have faced up to 3 years, and it turns out that he's only going to have to serve 4 months. So kind of interesting, just, to kind of see that play out and to see it be, certainly not that intense of a punishment necessarily.
Yeah, I don't even know what did he do? Like, what was he actually accused of? Was it just trumped up charges, or was it like, this seems odd to me.
Yeah, it seems like it. And that's kind of seems like what the net of it was they're kind of like, well, we don't really know what you knew or what you were involved with or what you did. So, I think they were just spraying into a lot of different fields at that time. And, I've seen some of that stuff. Unfortunately, today, or it was yesterday, Liz Warren raised her head again, and her opportunistic crypto bashing head, and she wrote a letter. I'm going to pull it up because it's fascinating to me in a weird way, but she wrote a letter to Secretary Austin and Yellen and everybody. And basically she's demonizing Tether as the workaround loophole for all rogue nations, and it's the loophole for all sanctions in her mind. And for me, it's just like so annoying because, you and I went to the Bitcoin Policy Summit, and we sat there and we saw all these like, fist pump. Yeah, but we saw like we saw these super inspiring stories across the globe of where Bitcoin enabled movements and people to be able to kind of resist and be freedom money. And then it's just so annoying that any opportunity, whenever there's a geopolitical flare up, for her to jump in and try to find another way to take it down and to find just another arrow in her little quiver that she thinks is going to do it. Whereas, as we've said, it's out there. It's not going to stop. Like, you got to just move on from it. And I don't know. It's just super annoying to see those letters pop up from her.
Well, and she's so
every time. And so, it's just so opportunistic in a negative way.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem like she fully understands, or maybe they do. Maybe they understand crypto, and this is them protecting I'm going to get this word wrong, the hegemony of the US dollar. Right. And it's sad because it crushes innovation. Like, think about how many there's a lot of grifters in this space. There are a lot of grifters in this space. And a lot of this stuff is just one big casino, but there's it's building the infrastructure of the next wave of decentralized finance. And I think one of the most important things that I'd want for my kids and my grandkids is to have some way to not have the government controlling the money supply so tightly, because, you know, we've seen in China and even in the US, like look at Roger Ver. He's not apparently he's not a US citizen, or he wasn't at the time. So he must be a dual citizen now, but he was arrested and given a $50 million fine for tax evasion. And, you know, anyone who's been in this space a long time, there's a lot of us who he's probably not our favorite person, but then again, as a human being and like being citizen, like I don't fully know his story, but it just seems like they're cherry picking people to go after. For people who don't know, Roger Ver planted his flag in the ground in the big Bitcoin Cash rift in, what year was that? Maybe it was probably 2017. I think that sounds about right. And he put his flag firmly in Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin Cash did not win that fight, thank God. Although when I got my first set of Bitcoin miners, you have Bitmain out of China made you convert your Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash, and that was such a painful, even though the money was going to go straight to them for the miners anyway, but that was such a painful thing to be like, oh, like Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash, you know, that's like trading gold for like pogs, or like you know, like crappy garbage pail kids that aren't even like the old rare ones. Like it's like the bent ones that were found in your drawer with the bubble gum like stuck to it. So
you do have you go back to garbage pail kids fairly consistently. It's a bit of a theme, I must point out. They left an impression on you.
I know. I wish I could pull them up pretty quick, but they were so funny. While you're talking, I'll pull it up at some point. Hold on. We got Dr. G. He's saying basically, nope, she understands malice, not stupidity. So I think he's probably right. I think it's a calculated play by her and her team to rally the, I don't know why there's so many anti-crypto people. Like I could see normie people like not being into it. You know, like people who just like in their daily lives, it just doesn't come up. Like I totally respect that, but being anti, especially when they trump up the numbers, like, you know, because what is a point? You and I just learned 0.4% roughly of crypto is used for like funding terrible crap, right? Or like illicit. Whereas I think the US dollar in cash is like 3 or 4%. So, I mean, let's put everything in perspective here. Hold on, I got to put this one up. This is classic. Why am I here? I have no idea. Shiraz, thank you for being one of our most devout listeners.
Those are questions I ask myself a lot.
Yeah. Why, Disco? Why are we here? What are we talking about? What is the?
It's point? Like he went in between my ears.
What is the? Oh, he was just about to go, and now I don't know how to get him off. There we go. So yeah, we don't know why we're here either, but we're talking about. But
I'd like to go back.
Freedom to speak. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to speak directly to Dr. G. I think that you have a good handle on, a better handle than myself on kind of the overall political climate and, you know, some of the races that are tied to, you know, where crypto is a factor. I know the Ohio, in Ohio, there's something pretty intense going on. I believe the New York Senate as well, or the New York Senate seat coming up. So open invitation. I'd love to kind of bring you on and have that conversation, because I'd like to educate myself as well as our audience a little bit about it. I know that, you know, there's some organizations out there like, you know, Stand With Crypto, and I've been looking into some of the things they have us working on. And, you know, I don't think it'll be that difficult for us to motivate some people to kind of move the needle and take action. And, you know, action's really just reaching out to legislators and stuff like that. But I'd love to kind of get a clear path of, you know, things that we could potentially impact, or at least have our voice heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, for sure. I can send them a link now if I can find my Discord and all these screens. So yeah, there's just, there needs to be a bigger fight. I posted, this is one of my more proud posts. I think it got 4 likes, but I feel like
What's that like?
I feel like I'm David Hoffman now. Be like, and there was a really important tweet from David Hoffman. Be like, you mean you? Like those guys just self-reference each other. Don't worry, we'll get to Eigenlayer and Bankless. That's our salacious story of the day. But I forget where I was even going.
Yeah, because the pie on the table got too interesting with that comment. So we may have to take a nibble soon. Yes.
We'll go there. I brought you out to the woods and I didn't bring you home. But there's so much going on in politics. Oh, I know what it was. It was that tweet from like a couple months ago. And I just said the future leadership of America and other countries absolutely should, and I think will come from this space because we're ahead of the curve. We see where things are going. Obviously some of us wear too rosy glasses and we're just pure degens, but a lot of people, I should say like us, because I mean, Disco and I aren't super big degens, but we're into the freedom to transact, freedom of speech, but we also get that decentralization. You don't need it for everything. Like a company's personal database and their clients and stuff, not everything needs to be decentralized, but some stuff does. And with finances, we're finding that the more decentralized it is and the less censorship resistant it is, the better. I'm sorry, the more censorship resistant it is. Wrong adjective.
All right, so let's start delving into the waters a little bit. On the Ethereum side of things, there's a story out there now about Solana looking to, or some opportunities on Solana looking to delve into the restaking field and into that side of things. And I guess kind of one of the bigger stories of the week this week is tied to Ethereum's version of that. Oh, let's hear. Hold on. Breaking news. We got a response.
Oh, he's just sorry. I was just posted doctors. These things. Standard Crypto is a great national level, and Texas Blockchain Council both good at the state level. So we'll check those out because we're actually amassing a lot of information on. Because I always want to know like what percentage. Like I want to see the real data. Like what percentage of miners are on renewable energy, like just so I have it, what percentage, like just knowing all this stuff, what percentage of the dollar is to illicit finance versus Bitcoin, which now that one we know off the tip of our tongue. Like I want everybody to have that on the tip of their tongue. And like Disco said, so we can reach out to our Congress people. But I think at some point we all need to be Congress people. And, it's at some point like common sense needs to prevail and we need to try and save this country from over surveillance and over censorship. So it's still the America we love and grew up with. And I do say that tongue in cheek, but we love America.
Yeah. Amen. All right. So how do we get in? Let's get into the meat of the restaking story and kind of how things went down. So I don't know how to necessarily frame it, but I believe they had the folks from, and it's Eigenlayer, right? So they had the folks from Eigenlayer on Bankless to roll out the strategy for their airdrop and for their token. And it didn't land very well, I guess is the best way to kind of tee that part up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is Eigenlayer. And you and I have brought this up before because restaking, like the whole concept to me, like to me, the concept of restaking is like, you're already like, if something goes wrong with Ether, if you really need to get your ETH out for whatever reason, staking, remember, if you're the first person out of the queue, right now people aren't leaving the actual ETH validator queue. But if you're the first person out, like you're fine. It's going to happen same day. And then there might be, I think there's like a 48-hour, there's some delay before you can get it, but it's not terribly long because they want to balance. You can, not everyone can head for the hills, but if something bad goes on, then it takes longer and longer and longer. Just like there was a 2-month queue last summer to get in as a validator, that queue to get out could be 2 or 3 months. Think about it if you're restaking that staked ETH in Eigenlayer. So to me, it's like, this always felt like play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So the big net is what? Basically an eigenlayer, the restaking platform. And everyone said it's like, hey, you're using ETH, you're using the restake to secure other things. And I guess that sounds interesting, but like, why aren't you then a roll up layer 2 to have, like, to me, why is it eigenlayer? But people are pissed. I was going to put up the tweet for that everybody's looking at, but it's got like pretty not racial. It's got nasty slurs on the Bankless guys' heads, and as much as I think they've lost the plot to everything, and they've no longer become relevant. And they've even said it themselves, they are not a news organization. They have chosen to be investment advisors, which is way more profitable. But if you listen and look at their spreadsheet, which Disco and I have actually done, because I used to be a huge fan. I got into ETH and crypto way before them, but they were very good and instrumental, I feel like, at explaining certain ETH concepts. It allowed me to help onboard other people, but it also, they were never big into NFTs and stuff, but I thought they were a value add for a long time in this space. And now I stopped listening to them or subscribing or anything, probably when we started our podcast. So 6, 7, 8 months ago now. And and every once in a while, if they have someone interesting on, I'll check in, but it's just like, if you look at the spreadsheet, like they're transparent about who their advertisers are and who they're consultants for. But these guys are consultants for like 70 companies, and they always have 4 or 5 massive advertisers each quarter. And you'll notice that their tune changes as the advertisers change. Like, you were the one who caught it. Like, they went from Rocket Pool, I think, to Lido, or Lido to Rocket Pool. Like, they switched, and then all of a sudden the tenor of their show switched. So you can't really trust a word they say. But one time after you showed me that, I was looking, and when they spoke about stuff, like, they'll tell you maybe by the end of the show, or they'll say, hey, go check the spreadsheet. But they're not even like if you listen to a story and you're like, you have to buy Eigenlayer, you have to get in and stake your money, you're going to make a fortune, it's going to be awesome. Then at the end of the show, they're like, we're advisors of Eigenlayer. You've already gotten that like mental implant of someone who is telling you to do something. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we're advisors. Well, if you tell me that up front, either I'm going to turn you off because you're not a reliable source. You're an insider, and now they've become the insiders. And think about it. Like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're an advisor with 70 companies, it's not like the crypto space is huge. And think about it. Not only are you an advisor for 70 companies, so you're almost covering like every type of possibility for layer 2s and for, like Daylight. I think that one like finds you airdrops, like anything, wallets, anything you can think of, they're a sponsor of. So not only does it affect those 70 companies, but all their competition. So now multiply that by 5 or 10. So now you got like 700 companies. So basically you have been compromised in your opinion, in my opinion, especially with mainstream media, and now how all of us have to literally listen to something and use our best critical thinking skills to actually like determine, like, is this a scam? Do I need more information? Does this seem legit? Like, with them, I can pretty much throw everything away, and it's just not, it's not relevant information anymore. And the funniest thing about it is, like, I'm sure they're 2 nice people, but I think they literally have lost the plot and they defend themselves. I think they're so tone deaf now. I don't think they even understand why people are so pissed at them.
I have a working theory, which is non-substantiated, but I kind of feel like, and it's natural, and I don't begrudge success to anybody, and I don't, and everyone can define success their own way. You and I are looking at things from a very grassroots level, and basically it's like you and I looking at things and having conversations and being like, why don't we just share this, and maybe some people would like to pay attention or get involved and be part of the conversation. And I'm not trying to put us in a different camp or a different pedestal, but I can see the trappings of success and notoriety and things that happen. So God bless, someone for building up something from writing, stories and then being like, hey, we got this podcast, it's got traction.
Sure.
But there's ultimately that point where you have to, and I went through this in a past iteration of my life. Like I was putting out some products and associating with things and getting paid to promote and do this in the music industry. And I'll say with full disclosure, like the first half of the run was incredible, and the artists that I was featuring were, banging, and it was a great play. But towards the end, I started cashing checks and I started putting things on that weren't necessarily, complete passion plays or something that I was really fully behind. And so I do understand that that's natural. But the thing that really kind of irks me, and my theory, just to get back to it, is I think things maybe changed a little bit once one of the gentlemen moved from Southern California to the East Coast and maybe got a little bit enamored with kind of the scene in kind of Brooklyn and more of the fast paced stuff, and probably more meetings with bigger heavy hitters from, kind of outside of just the crypto space. And so I think maybe that could be an indicator of when things kind of changed. You also have to look at, the importance or the rise or the re-rise, I guess, of Bitcoin and people flocking, as you'll say, back to the mother chain with, kind of the advent of ordinals and all that, and kind of the mind share shifted. So then you're sitting there, before ETH had its moment and everyone was kind of looking at that as kind of driving the boat. But now when Bitcoin came back and kind of, pulled the tug of war and kind of got the mind share back, then their relevance was a little bit less relevant. But what's pissing me off the most about this is the fact that it says IGN layer team and investors are getting 55%. So they're okay, fine. I'm not buying it. So they're in the 55. Let's
go with IGN layer.
They're in the 55%, but the stakers are only getting 5% of the overall thing. So, people have their opinions of different chains being more VC funded or projects being VC funded. Like, this just came out like, oh my God, they're really taking care of the team and investors, and really having, as you kind of alluded to, those stakers are kind of the people that are going into the movie theater and are going to have the hardest time getting out if there's a fire. They're going to be at the end of the line. So it's just a bad look overall. And it always kind of felt like, when's this going to get exposed, or when's this going to come to light? And it kind of is starting to happen once they rolled out their potential airdrop plan.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, let's just call it, let's just give it a different name every time. IGN layer, who gives a crap? But it's so egregious. Like when we had L1 season, there's a great chart that someone made, like when Solana came out, and I'm going to pick on Cosmos just because that's the only chain I can think of, but there was a list of all these L1 chains. This is probably ICO season or post ICO, and they showed each coin or blockchain and how much was distributed. Obviously Bitcoin most fairly distributed because nobody knew what it was, and it was just whoever mined, right? Ethereum actually early on was pretty bad, right? So it was like but over time, one could argue now, and I think this is part of the whole ETF argument, it's more sufficiently decentralized now. Like I know the Ethereum quote unquote foundation and Joe Lubin and all those guys, I think they got a really big chunk, but nothing like that's why I'm not a Solana fan. The VCs are behind. It's like, even when it's like community and then you look at the fine print, it's just like goes right back to them. You couldn't even be a validator early on. Like you had to have fiber and basically be approved by them. Like, and I'm fine with Solana. I mean, they're still number 3. I don't know if that will be true in 5 years, but we'll see. But so many of these coins had such a big outlay to the VCs, to the investors. And to me, if you don't, we're seeing it with runes. Like if you have, runes is such a great thought experiment right now. And I know we're all kind of down bad this week from the initial surge in excitement, but I think it'll come back. But people who are pre-mining an outsized amount, like, I'm a fan of the Satoshi Nakamoto rune only because of its name. I don't think we know who it is still yet, but they pre-mined 20%, which I think is high. But then again, look
Yeah.
at Arsic. They did 10%. Everyone was screaming bloody murder. And they gave, they worked with Memeland, gave them 2.5% so they could bring in more stakers and grow their user base, which they're not number one right now. RuneX is, because I think RuneX literally, I'm not a fan of RuneX at all. Let's just go there. They basically dropped to all, because that was pure engagement farming to be in them. And then when they saw Arsic drop, they're like, oh, we better actually do something like that makes sense and is more real. But I think because I have some RuneX, I think they dropped to their holders, the majority, then they dusted everybody. So they have like 110,000 holders. I'm like, yeah, no, like the dust isn't even worth selling. So to me, that's just a waste of an airdrop and a waste of time. But
is that the one where they were asking for like Bitcoin before or something?
Yeah, they actually wanted you to send Bitcoin to their private addresses. And then once Arsic came out, like, because everyone was like, wait, who's the first runes play? And I was like, oh, RuneX. And then I went on there and they're like, engage with us to get like a penny's worth of, like, they were pure, I don't want to say scammers, but it was pure, it was crap. It was poorly run, poorly executed. Again, if you give yourself too much of the pre-mine, that's why curling stones, everybody, probably the best rune out there, is only 5% pre-mine. And
how much do they weigh?
42 pounds each, and there's 42 million curling stones. So you heard
and
it.
you can't just create one out of just any material. Like, it's kind of unique where you have to get that. Correct?
It's granite from the tiny island in Scotland called Elsa Craig, where it's a very hard granite, but it also has buoyant rubbery properties, so it doesn't shatter when one stone hits another. Because if you're going for an in-off double to sit 2, and take give away the hammer, being up 1 coming home, then you got to use Ilsa Craig stone. So not from experience, but so here's the net of that 16-way tangent out to the woods. Let's bring it right back. 55% goes to the team and investors. So basically 55% goes to that douchebag who invented it, and like the Bankless guys and all the VC and like his friends and family. So, and by the way, the investors get immediate investing. The stakers.
Yeah,
dude, the stakers got 5%. And Ryan Sean Adams, or Adam Sean Ryans, or whatever that guy's name is, was basically like, I don't get it. There's like a 40% like return on this investment. So why I don't get why everyone's upset. It's like, dude, because you're like, you are now the spokesperson for kind of like VC insider grift. Like if you want to decentralize something, 55% to you and the DB who founded this, like, not going to work. Oh, and by the way, Disco, if you were in the US, they geo-blocked in the US and Canada and banned all VPNs. Now, obviously, as Ryan Sean Adams, which he said you could VPN around it, but they're saying saying banning VPNs. So I'm sure there's fancier ways around it. That's a higher tech class than I am right here, but just not going to make it. Like if you're trying to go for some decentralized restaking layer to basically secure things downstream, this is how not to do it. And I'm sure it has its defenders, but I don't want to dance on anyone's grave, because maybe there's no grave to dance on, but I know that the amount of withdrawals already after 2 days is at least 12% of all people are like, get my money out of this probably multi-sig, like this guy's personal wallet. So I don't know.
Yeah, and how long is that going to take? You know what I mean? Like they already said it's going to take forever. So I don't know.
Yeah,
and,
it's in a queue, Disco. It's in a queue. So the queue will come out eventually. So, I want you to hit on your point because I think you're right. David left for, that's David Hoffman, who I think he's one of the most insightful people was in ETH until these guys got caught up just pitching their own stuff. But he moved from San Diego to the Bronx, and that show got bigger.
Brooklyn.
fast. I'm sorry, to Brooklyn, and think about all like Brooklyn and New York there's a huge scene there, both on the ordinal side and on the ETH side and the crypto side. He probably had so many toadies like blowing smoke up his ass. Like, he became probably a little kingmaker out there. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Those guys, they've lost their way. They've lost their way.
Yeah. And I think that it would be an interesting experiment to, totally try to listen to one of the newer episodes and compare that to before. They had me hooked with like the settlers on the new frontier, and we're here to help guide. And, in that there's an implicit understanding that they're going to try to guide you and educate you, but not for their own gain. And that was what was kind of, always felt a little bit altruistic and felt cool about it. It's like, oh dude, we're going to check in and we're going to get kind of, what was it? The recap or the roll up. It's like, I'm going to get kind of my, have my cup of coffee or beverage or whatever the hell the little shtick was, but I'm going to have that. And then at the end, I'm going to kind of be up to date and briefed on, what kind of went down that was important. Right. And once you start realizing that it's pay to play in terms of what's being covered and the takes that are being covered, your take goes away to nothing but a shill. Your take goes away to something that was almost like approved by the product sponsor prior to that. So you basically, your credibility kind of really gets hit hard. Maybe it all works out for them. Hopefully they have a little bit of a little bit of come to whoever moment, or they realize that they may have been a little, Icarus, flying a little too close to the sun and they got burned, and they can kind of not, they can kind of get another take at it. But, and I don't want to get into like a little, Kendrick and Drake sniping war or anything like that, or diss war stuff, but I just think it merits being called out, and it's been kind of brewing that way for a while. And I think this, launch and bumbled launch and kind of rugging of the true stakers in this, and the transparency provided by this just insane, 55 to 5%. So 55 just being friends and families and insiders and VCs and everything like that. They get kind of their own rules and they get what they want. Like, smells like ick, and it's kind of, it's just it's coming around, and everything does come around. The other thing I'll say is you just saw kind of those platforms, or those you had kind of the Real Vision and kind of Bankless were kind of big, in the last peak of the bull and everything. Yeah. And I started getting nervous when it seemed as if somebody got to them from a consulting perspective or a partner perspective, where they just started trying to paywall everything out. And there were all these different tiers, and you could be a member or a citizen or an airdrop hunter or, Real Vision Premium or Platinum. And it's like, once you start getting all these tiers to get access to the content, then you start wondering like who's behind what content you're hearing. And
100%.
That's why I always like to say that what's kind of indie rock and fun about what we're trying to do is we want to be independent, and we want to support independent media and be a bridge for other folks that want to kind of build, new voices and new platforms out that are not, harnessed by any sort of obligation to any higher institution or partner, as I say.
Yeah. Do you think, Disco, this is maybe a rhetorical question for us and sure, everybody in this audience, can you have your cake and eat it too? Like the bit, like, let's say, we've had some nice, like, we love doing this, so we're going to keep doing it. Like you said, we're very independent media, at some point, and we're growing nicely because, we're part of this awesome community of so many smart people. Can you have your cake and eat it too? Do you think? Like, how do you grow as an independent media organization reporting the news, without the massive reach that, like the Bitcoin magazines or I say massive within our niche, I guess, or the Bankless is. But I mean, it's those are big reach and big influence. Like, can you grow and keep your integrity and honesty too, while having advertisers,
Yeah, I think it's certainly, it's a challenge. And I think you would need to be aware of, kind of what your route is and what you're looking to do. I think that what's most interesting about what we're involved in right now, and it's a notion that you've pointed out before, is we don't have to define what things are, and we don't have to fit, a business school, business plan, or, business canvas. This is what we're doing. So I think that, esoterically, you kind of got to follow your gut. And I think that your gut is always, at least that's how I've always looked at life is, I kind of got a feeling and I can feel if something feels good or not. But I think what's most interesting about what we're doing is I think we're developing a network of resources in terms of just subject matter experts that really are interested in the passion of the different protocols and different projects that they're aligned with and excited by. And I think that if you stay with that kind of not childlike wonderment, but you stay with those folks that are genuinely interested in these topics and we can learn from them, then I think you're doing a good service. And I think that's part of the mission of what I'd love to do. Like, I love when we can talk to Scribe and I know, like, dude, Scribe's going to have gone deep and understood like 19 different layers of this offense that's coming from this or that and has been able to do that. So as we can build kind of a network of other folks and share those voices with people, I think that's the ultimate goal of what I'm trying to hope that we can lead to.
Yeah, and Third Web, one of my favorite people in the whole space, and Nifty. Nobody has posted more on this show. For those who don't know, I think to post, it's kind of weird especially on the Twitter side. I think on the YouTube side it's easier, but on the Twitter side, you have to go in, click, like be in the video. Then you have to like click within there because you can like add a heart by just tapping, I think, but you have to actually like click somewhere to do the comments. So we can see those on our we're not looking at our phones, obviously on the X, but we do have a little cool panel here through Ecamm that can show us the comments. So if you have any questions, just ask us or have any comments. We'll as long as they're relevant, or if they're like that one guy saying, what am I doing here? Like if it's relevant or very non-relevant and funny, we'll post it up here.
He actually could have asked the most relevant and deep question of all time. What am I here? What's my purpose? So, let's give that life for sure.
We may have to get away from crypto and just be like life's thoughts, crypto edition. So you brought up Real Vision. Like we don't have to go there too much, but while we're just kind of calling out dirty laundry, like I think you and I, right when we started talking, I think independently of each other, I had also signed up for their basic platform and there was some good content in there, but really, to be quite frank, Raoul Paul was the one. I mean, let's be honest. If you have an upper middle class to upper class British accent, like you're already assumed to be 38% more intriguing and 21% more intelligent. And we learn time and time again that just isn't always the case. But they got, like, the second I signed up, they're like, did you know there's 16 other levels? You're the butter platform. And then you could go to paper and then you could go like, what? Yeah. Like F off. And they're like, you can get access to this content, but this week you can't. And a lot of the people on there, I'm like, there's way better free content on YouTube. And really, let's be honest, like the most relevant content is, you have to cut through a lot of crap, but it's on the X timeline. Like I've never been to Instagram. I heard it's just pure cesspool over there with crypto and NFTs. But if you want the best takes, you find like Third Web, you find B-Ways, you find Wanzi, obviously Scribe, you find good things. Like there's so many smart people, Polymath. There's so many smart people who have so many good takes, and I don't agree with everybody all the time, but I agree with the people that I keep in my timeline. Like they have good, unique, interesting takes, and if you prune your timeline correctly, X, there's no better place. So anything that's secondary to that with Real Vision and their walled garden over there or Bankless, like you're not relevant anymore. So I guess we've said it 6 ways till Sunday. But
I think you're 100% right. It's about the conversation. And I think that all the folks that you mentioned and all the people that, come up on stage and spaces and everything like that, I don't find anyone in kind of our orbit or our day-to-day that shies away from being challenged, that doesn't kind of look at it as an opportunity. Like, let's hear, what your side is. And I'm open to, kind of learning a little bit. And I think that that's something that you lose once you become, the authority and you're talking down to people. So I think that, oh, nice. Okay. But, I think that that's that's really part of it. And the one last thing I'll bring up, because I know how to potentially wind a watch over there with my man Blue Toshi, but I do think that there should be a little bit of post-mortem and follow-up on this whole Bankless DAO and how they rolled out the token and all that stuff, and to just kind of just kind of fly away from that and be upset if people ever bring it up. Like, how dare you bring that up? I think that needs to still get kind of settled and figured out. And if you have the funds to do naming rights for stadiums and things like that, like, can't you look at something to kind of make people whole from that perspective? So that's a dangling chat if you want to go back in politics.
Dangling chat. I don't know if I'd take the bait on that one. Like the Bankless DAO, like I guess I'm so the less you listen to them, like I'm not only do I not listen to them, like I used to at least subscribe and I'd be like, there's a good guest, I'll listen to that, because they still get the Tom Emmers, like the politicians, they're still, they're still the go-to, like basically them and Peter McCormack. And I think Peter McCormack actually, I think, has done a decent job with advertisers and not mixing it too much. He has them on every now and again, but he has advertiser pods and it's him recording it at a different time. So it's very easy to figure out. Now, are there sponsors where he peppers stuff in? I don't know. I'm not paying enough attention, but I don't think so, because he's talking more about big macro trends and stuff like that. So I guess you can have your cake and eat it too. And now, the Gemini guys just gave like $4 million to his football, what we call soccer club. And they're like level 9 now. I think they're going to get promoted again. So it's kind of a cool story there. But Bankless DAO, my point is, now that I'm unplugged from them, don't even subscribe. Don't, like, even if someone important like Cynthia Loomis came on and I wanted to hear what was going on in Capitol Hill, I can't. They're not even listenable anymore, because it's too tiring to have to discern what's true and what's not. So it's like, you just throw the whole thing out and let's move on, because I think there's obviously, we're trying to produce better content, but again, on the X timeline, I can get enough varied takes where, you got to do a little work for that, but it's there. So just, I guess to me, with them, Real Vision, everything, like you tried, you basically created a little like a little paywall club, which is your right to do, which is fine, but your value was worthless because you're making us pay to listen to you pitch the things your advisors for. And let me finish on Bankless. You wouldn't even be an advisor if you didn't have a big podcast. And people will be like, well, duh, so what? But it's not like the other side is stupid. They're basically saying, the Bankless boys, like, are they some genius VCs? No, I guarantee you they're not putting a lot of skin in the game. They're basically saying, like, what we will do as an advisor, and I'm sure it's not written anywhere, but it's probably more like, we can't promise anything, but we'll endeavor to mention you, to cover you within our show, within the space. Like, and maybe they are paying something, but I guarantee they're not paying as much as like an outside VSBC. I could be totally wrong. This is pure speculation, but if you didn't have a big show, you wouldn't have the clout to pull that. And that's where the waters are murky. And that's why, again, for the 43rd minute, I'm out. You're finished. Kaput. You're through here.
I think between us, I think it shows. I think it shows some progression and maturity. I like it, and it's actually a validation of the thesis of trimming the timeline and having the timeline be more than ample as a resource and utilizing it as such. So I think that's kind of a good full circle. I like it.
Hold on. So what is that? Just give us the rundown. So I'm going to put Nifty's thing up again. The Fed, they hold interest rates steady. So obviously they haven't raised it. So basically the stock market is doing nothing right now. Crypto is still, down, but the stock market itself is just flat for the day. So I guess no news is just
it's
day news.
The news is going to come. And as I said, it's like, trying to read the tea leaves, but the news is going to come in Powell's press conference and how he, addresses potential future action. So is he hawkish Does he come out like super hawkish like he did at Jackson Hole a couple years ago when people had changed everything? Or is he going to say, you know what, cuts are still on the table. We're just going to be, more data driven and see how it goes, because this is a nothing burger right now to a degree. Like nobody thought they were going to make any move right now, but we got to just see how they react to, his sentiment and his approach when he does his little press conference. So that would be more of the market mover from my take. Nifty, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm no TradFi guy, but that's what I think is kind of the way to read it.
So Pandora, I appreciate you. He says there's a workaround to access the Eigenlayer claims page for U.S. folks, but we're so uninvested here. I appreciate you. I'm just going to put you up because I love Pandora's PFP.
Nice.
I should know what that is. But I just think it's so funny. But Pandora, I know, is in a couple of my groups and DMs, and I'm a big fan. So I'm not going to post the link though, because I do not want to be. We're supposed to be like, that thing turns out to be like another Eigenlayer total disaster. But appreciate you all the same, Pandora.
Yeah, totally.
Nifty's saying whatever your question was before, he's saying yup. So it is confirmed. Yeah. So that's Eigenlayer and that's ETH. Usually we don't spend a ton of time there, but that one's been brewing a while. And we actually, on the whole Bankless thing, Disco and I did a whole show on why last fall we stopped listening to Bankless, but we had just started the podcast and we were like, do we want to be seen as like, just like, hey, little guy goes after big guy. Like there's a new story, and it didn't want to seem like bitter grapes. But now I guess the same thing. It's like the same thing with the whole Leonidas thing. Like there's a fine line between being candid and stating your opinion and trying to take sides. And I love what RunesDev did and said. He's like RunesDev has been, this is RSIC. They've been helping so many groups airdrop because they are coding monsters, but just saying like, look, let's all win this together. And Disco's in my Rune report this week, we basically said like, we hear you and we're going to take the high road. And to meet, when an us and them mentality is created to promote things, there has to be another side. But if there's no other side to grip onto, it's really just one side saying like, and there's people out there, because for us and them, like I don't see any thems out there. I only see, and I know Disco's the same way. We just see us. So
yeah, I completely agree. And I think that it's tempting and easy to go into the, or your camps, right? And be like, oh, I'm a this guy or that guy. But I think in the spaces, I think it was Friday of last week, Good Things brought up a good point. Good point was, just like, it's not going to do anything but help everybody if one of these projects breaks out and really, right, makes it go. So we really should, go to the old analogy of the rising tide, all ships. Like there's no reason to be infighting or to be picking sides. And it's not that difficult to, hedge yourself and be involved with multiples. There's a ton of people right now that are just focusing on top tens and getting in there and just holding, kind of the top tens and seeing where it goes. And as we can see, if we kind of talk a little runes right now, like it's kind of, we don't know a lot. Like it's so early that there it goes. It's a drinking game with it so early, but we don't even know if certain ones are associated with certain teams or where things are going. So as you said, like, yeah, dude, I'm kind of into this Satoshi Nakamoto because it's perfect freaking name and it looks cool and it's got a good early position. But other than that, we don't really know, the substance of what's behind things or who's aligned or what's going to happen on any of that. So it's just, I know some people are talking, I saw Scribe talk about, like early BRC20 stuff. Like it just takes a minute for everything to kind of take shape and take hold. So it's certainly too early to, pick sides. However, you're entitled to have your own reaction to different approaches, and you're entitled to, align emotionally and however you want with how certain things are done. And I just think that when it was getting a little snarky and it just felt like the tone was getting kind of, a little battly, it was pretty cool to see, kind of the Rune dev come back and just be like, dude, everyone just kind of chill out and get, like, let's work together. And I think that little, kind of blowing the whistle right there and just being like, dude, let's reset was probably pretty powerful, and something we may look back at and be like, dude, that was pretty cool and important to hear that at such an early stage.
Yeah, for sure. And for the mother chain, right? And other chains can fight and FUD, and with ordinals, there's a lot of infighting, but like if we don't engage, if Disco and I and all our listeners and everyone we're friends with doesn't engage, like it frees up your energy to focus on the things that are interesting to you. And right now for us, obviously that's RSIC, and I know Disco has an announcement later in the show. I don't want to steal his thunder, but I'm excited. Sorry, I'm excited about it too, though. I mean, it's cool because a lot of people are ignoring that segment for the Rune segment, and I think when you zig and others zag, like, it's a longer or medium to longer term play, but sometimes those are by far the best plays because you get the best deals where the attention is not, right? So
yeah, and as I said at the beginning of the show, like right now we have an opportunity to act on some of the convictions and some of the thesis that you've kind of developed over the past 3-4 months. And with the dip that we have, you do have a little bit of an entry point on some of the projects that you may have kept half an eye on, and it may be a good time to kind of act and kind of see those through. So I think there's just a ton of interesting things to look at. I don't know where we want to go. There we go, the Rune report. Let's take a look at that. Well, I do love the old.
I feel like you went there. So for those who don't know, Disco and I wrote. This is the second edition. Of course, edition 1, right? You got to start at 0, but of the Runes report, and I have a feeling we're going to include ordinals, and it's probably just going to tie into everything else that we do. So right now the focus is on Runes, but I will say one of the most fun things is I'm a Mac guy, and just using Keynote and then just seeing like what the meme coin of the week is, and just putting like, there was actually something funnier than this grandma one. If you look here, this thing's hilarious. Like this like someone did a kick-ass AI thing. So I don't even own Dope Grandma coin, but I just think it's funny. And that's the one that was popping yesterday. I'm sure today there's 6 others taking its place, but I think I saw people buzzing that it was still up. But we're not here to necessarily focus on meme coins as much. We're more into infra stuff and people trying to build out the ecosystem to see if Runes is kind of a next step to maybe solve some things that Lightning hasn't fully solved yet, or to bridge to L2s. Who knows where everything will settle in 10 years to have the best, most efficient system with the most security. But I think Runes was at least a nice step for at least bringing more degen behavior to Bitcoin. I guess what surprised me, Disco, kind of going off the chart, is I know Solana just completely, and those are probably the most experienced degen meme coin traders out there, and those things went to billions. I don't know how many went to billions, but a lot. I guess I'm surprised at how few people, not how few people, but I'm a little surprised that one of them didn't hit that $1 billion mark, and that Solana guys didn't sharpen their swords and come over, and ETH meme coiners didn't come over, but Solana especially, and maybe Bitcoin is just still, even though now all the infra, the most of it's there. I know a lot of the ETH morning shows, especially the ones from New York, always make fun of like Bitcoin's infra, and the best take I ever saw on that was, dude, if you get in when everything's completely set up like Chase Bank, then you didn't capture any of the upside, you dipshit. So and I agree with that, right? So, we used to do all this stuff in spreadsheets. I know people are tired of hearing that, but like that was a freaking gamble, and some of those paid off and some of them didn't. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
That is interesting. No, that is interesting, because that was kind of the thing. It was just going to, everyone was going to jump in, and we'd have a whole new, kind of new pool party filled with new guests. And I don't know how we can really check to see how much of that came to life. Like, I don't know how we can really get an accurate read on new entrants specific to the launch of Runes, but I'll just say, like, it's made it super fun. And I know that was, I never really was interested or involved in kind of a meme coin, from the genesis, and kind of seeing that happen. I was late on Pepe, but I was flirting with getting in. I still kick myself for not pulling that trigger, but it's fun right now, even just to look at Magic Eden and to look at the rankings and to see like the price changes per day and rank by that. So like I just did that, and like Koala and Impala, is up 79%. So we'll be surprised with some of the new ones that come in and kind of take the mantle for a little bit. But I just find it super fun to kind of just look at all these different ones. So yeah, sort by the price percent difference. So the second tab over.
Right. But I mean, then you're getting just gobbledygook because someone may, like, you can't really, like, that doesn't really, you got to go market cap and then just scroll that, or maybe volume, because you start doing it by percent. Of course, there's going to be a bunch of weird, but everything was down hard yesterday. RSIC was up because they had 3 major announcements with, obviously, Memeland was last week, but what was the big one? Actually, like USDT to RSIC, or to Rune Coin. That's the name of their coin. But, we're not just Bitcoin to Rune trading pairs like a Magic Eden. We're actually going to USDT. Like, we're going, to that stable coin layer, which is absolutely crazy how quickly they're building their infra out. But, congrats to Decentralized for, they've got their drop now. It was a successful drop. I think as far as holders, this is my favorite on nice. Hats off to Luminex too for, created such a good. So there's Runes X Bitcoin, 110,000. RSIC is just under 100,000, and Memeland really helped with the whole stakers thing. Really helped get their numbers up big. Dog to Moon, 71,000. Lobo, which is I think that's a company called Paradigm that's behind that one. Gob at 47,000, and then Decentralized at 45,000. So congrats, they came in late to the pre-Runes drop, but the CyberCongs team's just, nothing but respect there. I've never had a CyberCongs, but and I'm not a big roadmap guy, but I think Decentralized, for me and Disco especially, like, that's, if we had to pick a name and we had all the resources to get a top 10, that absolutely would have been the ticker we would have picked. But shoulda, coulda, woulda. Maybe had this all happen in like 2 years, we would have been in that position. But hats off to them and congratulations. Gob, which is a fun game to play. They've done they had a really fun game. I think they did a good job at that, and they've been rewarded with a lot of holders. Now, as far as we need to do a whole show on Fihu. Like, people are speculating that it's RSIC.
Yeah.
And
is that because of the symbol, like the Fihu symbol, like is like as a rune that represents what, like wealth or something?
I think it's wealth. So it's like and I think that's the most rare symbol with RSIC, but everyone's also going to copy RSIC. So, when you pre-mine 99% and don't 1%, to me, that's just rife with like the big cry from the community, and I don't blame them. And I guess, I'm part of the community. I FOMO'd into a couple Fihus. I'm sure I overpaid a couple days ago.
As did I.
I got a couple Fihus, and everyone's like, just send the 99% to Satoshi's wallet, which would be an interesting power move. For the number one token, it would be a bizarre move. Like, my only theory is it's either a big player who's just kind of waiting and playing with people, like, someone very easily like RSIC, or maybe like Runestone, I guess, or Decentralized, or somebody could have gotten a bunch. Now, they're saying they're not affiliated with any team. But Fihu being the number one, obviously behind the number 0, which is Casey's Uncommon Goods, the market cap of these is obviously not a real market cap, but the market cap of it is $2.2 billion. And that's because everybody's buying each one for $20. There's only 1% supply, and the other 99% are locked. So obviously it's not a $2 billion market cap, but if you burned everything, well, then it'd be 2 billion times 0.01.
Yeah,
right?
I can't do that math. Yeah.
So basically you're because you're diluting That's an interesting concept. Obviously, it would not stay at 2, but the market cap is not 2 billion because 99% is locked up. If you had
Right.
99% unlocked up, you'd have all this supply, and you can't apply what a teeny little supply is obviously to the other 99%. So it was just a strange move. Maybe there's some master stroke, and another point is maybe somebody minted as many as they could here, didn't even have a plan, didn't really think much about it. They're like, well, we'll just tinker around. We'll let 1% get out there. We'll hold the 99% and we'll sell the rune to one of the big players who, of course, would be like, I'll take the number 1 rune. I got plenty of uses for it. So who knows? I know the team has signed a signature, so we know who they are, because the one I bought, Satoshi Nakamoto, I'm like, being a pragmatist here, I'm like, well, that's the name. That's the best one, maybe besides Decentralized. So I bought some, not a ton, but a bunch. But I don't even think the team has come forward. So they own 10 and 11 too, which is what, Mr. Happy Warhammer and Cat on Skateboard or something. But we've not heard peep from them. So who knows? It was quite strange. Like, you'd think you'd have a plan if you were going to spend the money to be up there at number 1, but maybe when they redid Ord, I know they had to spend way less. So maybe they're like, screw it, let's get it. And then we'll figure it out later. And this is where the backroom deals happen. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. So just to circle back, I know that you were like, oh, it doesn't make any sense to look at the percent, searching by the percent. I like it because it gives me an idea of some of the ones that aren't just in like the top 10, and it gets creative. Like, there's fun names and it's fun to see what's kind of getting going. So it's a little bit degen-y from that side of it, but it's fun just seeing there is a lot of creativity working within the parameters. And that's kind of a good sign to me that we have creative folks that are starting to dig in. We don't know what the outcome is going to be on some of this, but it is fun seeing some of these other ones kind of jump up, and you're like, dude, that's a pretty clever way to do it. So
Right.
I just think it's fun. And I think that it's fun to have something fun within Bitcoin. I'm sure I'll get in trouble for saying that stuff, but I think it's fun to kind of get into, kind of seeing these things develop and kind of not really A&R, but kind of just, look at certain ones that kind of resonate with you, which is what everybody was saying before the halvening. Like, if something makes you laugh or something, like, pay a little bit of attention to that. So it's just, it added a different element to my day of, kind of checking in on things and seeing things we're at and making decisions. So I know we talked a lot about the rune side of it. And then I also think that there's areas of opportunity that aren't necessarily at the top of the focus chamber right now as well. So it's a really fun time to kind of just be involved in the space.
It is fun. But like I'm looking here, so I sorted by the way you said, like Koala and Impala. Like, I think what Magic Eden can do better is tell me the number of holders. Because right here, like, if there's, so now I got to go to Luminex, see Koala and Impala, like, how many holders do they have? So
yeah, that's because it's more.
But like, are you gonna buy? Because you don't have enough data here. I guess that's like Runes Punk. So there's the whole, like, the whole crypto punks.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
Well, it's just like with Bitcoin punks. I'm not a fan because I own CryptoPunk 8205, and I'm always like at a meeting or out to dinner or just not around, and then someone mints mine in this, like, because I would have obviously minted mine. Like, I think it's fun, and I don't care. And I've said this before, but like CryptoPunks, I might be in the minority of a CryptoPunks holder, but I'd love to see them be CC0, because to me, it's just 2017. It was one of the first NFTs out there. It wasn't the first, but it was certainly the first to capture 10,000K to capture major attention. And if it was CC0, I think it would be perfect, which I think segues us perfectly. I forgot we hadn't.
I was going to say, speaking of CC0, what an interesting
right.
concept. Why don't you just define what CC0 means, and then we'll put it into the news of the week, because it certainly made an impact. So basically, what was it? Yuga removed Moonbirds CC0 status. And that's kind of the net of it, because
they took it back.
Yuga bought them, right? But Yuga bought Moonbirds a month ago or 6 weeks ago or something
2
like
months
that. It's
ago
hard
from
to really,
Kevin Rose, right? Who
right.
literally one day was like, "Oh, Moonbirds or CCO." Like that dude, like that's another guy who sounds super intelligent, who literally kind of, I mean, if you just look at the numbers, screwed his holders. You know, I actually was on that allow list. I just got lucky in a lottery or something, and I sold that thing within 24 hours at 13 ETH. I think it 2 days later was
Wow.
at 37. I'm not upset, but I was like, wow, I did not see it mooning that high. And then after that, it just had its slow over like a year, 14-month descent to, I don't know if it went below 1, but it was super low and super bad. And so Kevin Rose at some point made it CCO. I guess a lot of the people who had Moonbirds did not like that at all, because, you know, some people paid a pretty penny and they wanted to use it for, you know, their
Right.
IP rights, kind of like Punks and Apes and Azuki. You know, I don't know. I've seen some cool stuff. Azuki's actually done some cool stuff. People with their IP, like Iced Coffee, I think has a whole like clothing line. So neat things have been done out there. Bored Apes, I know, had that restaurant in California, which I believe a couple episodes ago we announced shut down because, you know, the Bored Ape art,
Yeah.
it was much, you know, I have nothing against Yuga, but Bored Ape art, I don't know if that's more of a hot flash trend. I don't know if that's like long-term art on wall art. And this is just my opinion. Whereas a CryptoPunk being pixelated, kind of being first, being simpler, to me feels more like art. So that's the direction I went in. But so you're right. They took away CCO, and I know that at a party
Is that to
somewhere,
fit it into, is the reason to fit it into what they're trying to do with like the other side metaverse? Like, is it necessary from that perspective to make it like become part of their ecosystem from their, you know, kind of build out perspective that way? Or like, I'm trying to figure out the rationale.
I don't know if they had to do it for other side. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I think none of their other projects, like Punks, you have IP rights. And the big thing with Punks is when Yuga bought them, a lot of people were unhappy with the original crew because they wouldn't give IP rights at all. Basically, you didn't really own any IP rights to your Punks, the original Larva Labs guys. So Yuga took it a step further and said, no, you have IP rights just like we did with the apes. And they did that on day one, which I was a newer Punk. So I was like, that seems kind of cool. It's better than it was from Larva Labs. So it's a win, but I still think Punks for the longevity, like Punks and the Bitcoin blockchain are going to outlast all of us. You know, hopefully it lasts thousands of years, and, you know, everything matures to decentralized currency away from government kind of surveillance currency. But to bring it back from CCO, you can't legally do that. So I that's what I've been told, and I've seen it written a couple places. Again, I'm no lawyer, but I even heard that before any of this happened. I was listening to a podcast like last summer, and I just remember, I don't know why I remember that piece, but they're like, yeah, once you go CCO, that's it. Like, it's public domain.
Yeah,
CCO is basically like anybody. So if I own CryptoPunk A205 and it's CCO, or let's just use the perfect example, MFers. MFers are CCO. Anybody can take my MFer. I think it's 4994, 5994 or something. I should know the number, but I know I have a pair of nines in there if there's ever like MFer poker. But Disco, you could, I know you have your own MFer. You could use my MFer. And you have a little clothing shop. You could put mine on a t-shirt. You could put anything on it. You could put the best alien on a t-shirt. Anybody can use CCO for anything. There's a guy I follow named David Horvath, I think, who's a big CCO fan, trying to grow these organic, like open. Think of CCO as like the Linux of, you know, of art and projects or whatever,
Right.
where anybody, you send it to the world. Like if Hello Kitty was CC0, then anybody could come out with a Hello Kitty line. Where big brands, I don't think like that, because there's got to be royalties on the t-shirts, and you give 7%. Nickelodeon used to always get like 7% of like the SpongeBob on the t-shirts that's sold at Target or something like that. So CC0 throws all that out the window. I guess it's good for the stores because they can say like they could have a whole MF or t-shirt line, don't have to ask anybody, don't have to pay anybody. Like, or someone could come to them with the idea. They're like, well, great, we're just going to take your idea. Thank you. And see you later. So it's not the perfect thing in the world, but I'm a big fan. That's why I bought my MFer.
Yeah.
They need to be on chain, but they're fully CC0, and I'm a huge fan of that. So Moonbirds now are not CC0. Part of it probably is because of the other side, and part of it is probably that's just Yuga's philosophy. And I think these web quote unquote 3 companies are trying to have these different collections like them. They got rid of heavy metal, they got rid of some of the dogs, but you need IP under your roof to be kind of a long sustainable company. I think in Web 3, I personally think they're in trouble. I think the attention is focused elsewhere. You just like blinked out. Hopefully the internet didn't go bad. But I think attentions are being focused elsewhere. Ordinals, right? Bitcoin and stuff like that. But also I think with royalties and what Blur did and that ship, whether you agree with it or not, and I think artists should get royalties, but that ship has kind of sailed. So you can lock down with Magic Eden all you want, but people aren't really buying Bored Apes anymore. So unless you have the next one, like remember when they built Bored Apes, they were just like 4 dudes with the artists that they hired, or a couple of artists to make that, and it just was the right vibe at the right time, and it just took off meteoric, and then they built a company around it. Well, can you capture magic in a bottle again? My answer is I don't know. There's so many good artists out there. I doubt it.
And it also, I mean, looking back on it, they also really early had a pipeline into, Web 2 or Web 1 influencers, right? So they started feeding, that into the celebrities who would then go on like late night talk shows and explain that they just got a Bored Ape and it's a non-fungible token, and they were awkwardly explaining that, which I give them credit for, because it was pretty hard to explain even right now, right? But I did see that on Monday, Yuga Labs also announced a restructuring and is doing staff reduction. So I don't think you're far off the mark on saying that, they got to really figure out what they're going to do. And, it's always sad to hear people getting laid off and out of there, but it doesn't seem like it's on the rise. Kind of on the same token, but not necessarily. Azuki, who we've been talking about for quite a while, they just dropped their debut episode, and I don't know, the feedback's pretty good, and it's interesting to see that execution playing out and coming to life. I'm not like a total aficionado, so I can't necessarily decipher, what makes everything great or what they're doing, but it does seem like they certainly got a really good, credible team in place. But I guess my question is, what does the success look like for this? You know what I mean? So they can put the series out. I think this is going to be a 3-part series, and I know you can watch it on YouTube, and it's through like, Azuki's account and everything.
Yeah.
But what is it?
I'm putting it on the background as we're talking because it's very. I watched it with my daughter last night.
Yeah.
So,
but like, what do you get at? What's the kind of, oh, this is a good job because XYZ happened, I guess is my question.
Yeah. I mean, I almost wanted to digest for a while. I watched it last night. My opinion is mixed and all over the place. And I read a lot of what the Azuki wrote. They're like, if you're fading this, like you're crazy. I think it's definitely, have you seen it yet, Disco?
Yeah, I watched it, but again, I don't have that great a baseline. I think it looks sweet. I think it's cool. Like I'm into it, but I just don't know what it's going to lead to. That's kind of my bigger issue.
Yeah. So I think I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think it's a good start. I think anime wise, it's It's pretty fun. I like the drawings. I like the art. It's true to the anime style, low frames per second. It's like an 8-minute video at all, and we're watching it, right? I don't know.
Right.
I feel like I'm at 2x speed right now, but it all takes place just around this vending machine, and you got your kind of stealth, so you're a mystery man right there. But I think it's a step in the right direction, so I'm happy for Azuki and the team and all the holders now. Oh, there's just a plug. I didn't even see that before. There's like a plug. I don't know the top of my head, but they're like peppering in actual like Azuki in the. Do you see the little billboard? And there's like an Azuki on it. So obviously that'd be pretty cool to and if they're gonna pay homage to different people, I think it's cool. Like really for me is that like this was the move that they should have made 18 months ago. I know you were saying like it takes a while to move, but remember when they first started, they were the Funks guys. They, people kind of accused them of being serial ruggers. I don't think they were that. I think they were just doing derivative punk stuff facing the other direction and made some bucks doing that. It was a clever crew. And then Zagabond realized like, hey, I need like to win in this game. You need like, he followed the Bored Ape playbook. You need IP rights, right? So they got Steam Boy and they made killer art. I still think Azuki spirits are probably some of the best PFPs out there, if not the best PFPs out there, bar none. And that even includes CryptoPunks and all that stuff. There's probably some ordinal stuff that I like better, but it's super cool, right? And I think they needed to do this way sooner because the elemental drop, that's when I was out. I know a lot of the Spirit DAO, I just through observation, not that I've talked to any of them, but like there was a lot of frustration there. But when you own like 40 Azuki each, there's no one to sell to. You know what I mean? So
except someone else. Right.
So a newcomer coming in, but I held my one Azuki because it was my 6905. I don't remember numbers anymore, but I loved it. It's got the tennis shoes around his neck and he's got this awesome smirk. I'm a big fan of it and I held it and I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but like if you look at this artwork, like I love the coloring they use. I'm a fan. I guess where they like after they needed to do all this before the elemental drop. And the other thing I wish Azuki would do or would have done is now with AI, there's so many smart people out there. You could actually have so much. I mean, we used to talk about this when you and I first started our show. There were no collection had more derivatives than Azuki. I'll bet Azuki has more derivative artwork on its PFPs than every other collection combined. I'll bet you it's 5x every other because it's like I could see Renga, but Renga never got the high floor value and the core group as much. And Renga's also on AWS servers. I love Renga, but like, that's it's not even IPFS. That's kind of a shame. But Azuki had all those folks. So they needed to do this a lot sooner and they need to give guide rails so people can start writing stories all around. This whole thing's about her kind of struggling with society and it's telling you what drink to get when you're tired or when you're feeling sleepy or when you're too excited or whatever. And then, so they just highlighted some more Azuki, which I think is super cool. I'm guessing my Azuki probably won't be highlighted anytime soon, but I assume it's the core folks and well deserved. But this whole episode is about, we're doing like a free ad for Azuki here, but it's well done. The coloring's cool, and it's about taking the red bean to go from the alley to the garden. So, hats off to him. The floor price did go from 4 to 5. I checked, or it went to like 5.2, but now it's already back down to 5. So is floor price everything? No, but this is a big step for them. So can they get a big deal with Netflix or Prime and actually have it be an anime-like success? That to me seems like the home run they would have to hit to cross that Web 2 chasm in order for Azuki to have value. But again, they can't pass value to the holders.
Thank you.
In any other way except for your Azuki to be worth more than it was the day before. That's a hand like that. The team probably would love to share revenues, but they made so much money off that elemental drop and off the royalties and off the original drop before before the royalties went away. So, you know, could this, if they didn't make as much money, could this sustain itself? No, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know what they're
exactly.
paying. Dentsu, I believe, is the biggest. Dentsu's like the Leo Burnett or the gray advertising of Japan. They are international global Goliaths. Like, there's 3 agencies that represent basically everything, and
Everyone.
Dentsu globally is one of them. And and the producer they got, obviously they're picking the right guys, they're partnering with the right people. But
Yeah, and I'm
there you go.
like,
Now you're in the garden. So cool first episode, but it's 8 minutes long. This was probably very expensive to make. Like, where do you go from here?
that's where I go. Like, I like watching it. Even when you just had it on, like, I got sucked in. I like the images of the skate, or, like the skating kind of on the waves and all that stuff. Like, that's all dope. But it just goes back to the central question I have of is, okay, as a holder, how is this going to benefit me? And why is it a wise, allocation of set amount of funds? Why wouldn't I be better stacking sats? And I know I keep going back to that with all this stuff, but I just think that these more, I don't want to say legacy projects, but these projects from kind of the last round, yes, they have a head start in terms of integrating into, the entertainment structure in the Web2 structure, if you want to say that. But I don't see how it benefits holder of, whichever number, or elemental holder or bean holder. And it's great. I can see it being a tremendous opportunity for the team to parlay it into, whatever comes next and whatever their next kind of iteration is or reinvention. But I just don't see value that would make me be like, dude, I got to move some stuff around and I got to get involved and I have to hold Azuki right now. And that's kind of my fundamental issue. It's like, legally, they can't help holders benefit from the success. So as opposed, like, I can be a fan and watch it and dig it and be like, dude, that's cool. And I kind of like Azuki and that's cool to see that happening. But for me, and I don't know if I'm being too pragmatic, but at the end of the day, that's not going to help me, kind of achieve some of the goals I'm looking to when I'm spending time in the space.
Right. But I guess I'll play. I agree with everything you're saying. The only devil's advocate I would play is it from you and I in the Runes report talked about like utility, like social flex.
Right.
And the I will say the community in Azuki is a very tight, strong one. Now, obviously, with elementals in the last year of the price just going down to 3 ETH, they've lost a lot of people. But the core group there, I mean, pretty big core group, I would say, has definitely stuck around. Some might have strayed elsewhere, but have come back. So they've got the following. And, I think if you hold, like, now that I hold one, like if I
Right.
got in, like if I had money and I was getting in and I was newer and I wanted a collection to go to an ETH and they were doing all this and listen to their spaces, that would be kind of with just one Azuki or something, that would be a cool play. Now, does cool get you any value back? Yeah, maybe, because when Azuki was at 3 ETH, and maybe the next video when we learn more about the garden, and obviously everyone's probably dying to see a spirit Azuki, like that might raise the floor. So maybe it's a good time to buy and then either get out or be a part of the community more longer term to build something Web3 that may be able to cross the chasm to Web2. Now, is it a financially prudent move? Like if I said to you, well, let's take ETH out of it. If I said, hey, I don't know what's ETH in, I'll just call it $3,000. So if I said, hey, I've got this great deal for you. There's this little PFP. Give me $15,000 and I'll sell you a super cool PFP. And they're making these little short videos on YouTube for it. But it could turn into a big anime thing and it could go to Netflix. Would you buy it? Probably not. But it's an interesting thought experiment and it is a strong community. So there is that side of it, at least.
Right. But when we went to the event, I was getting like wrapped up in people being so passionate about it. So I will grant 100% the community is galvanized and it is true. Like they're true to the skating roots and all like that. All that's really cool. And we had the conversation before of like, can like a Supreme or a True Lifestyle brand come of this space and how cool that would be and how interesting it would be. But one of the things people kept saying was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like we're part of Marvel, at the beginning or whatever. And it's like, I think that's all cool, but I think that why can't I just enjoy it as a spectator? And do I need to, invest and buy it when the kind of the structure of the agreement doesn't lend to profit sharing? So it just makes it kind of harder for me to think that makes the most sense. I don't know.
Yeah. So I guess the only add I would make onto that is if you bought one and were going to make your own stories, whether it was comic books or digital material or AI videos, like if you had those capabilities, like, then it might be a pretty cool play. I had a bunch of stuff written in background for my guys. I had 3 or 4 commissions done, and that was when ETH was $4,000. And, so I spent probably an ETH or 2 or 3 on derivatives. And the second, that all that Zagabond FUD came out and really how he responded to it, not that I never left, and I was still glad to be in Azuki with some of the core people in my Sensa Beans group, but I immediately halted derivatives and any story writing, because I'm like, if the foundation is made of quicksand, like why am I building a little house for my little guy? I had names for him and was writing stories. Like I sound like a midlife crisis douchebag, but it was fun, and the community was fun. It was fun to see different people's derivatives and the little GIF animations and stuff like that. But you're absolutely right. Like from a pure financial standpoint, like are any of these going to net you Jenny wealth? Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd go to the ordinal space now that Runes has max attention. That's
yeah. I hear you. So I kind of did go to the ordinal space recently. And I wasn't in, we've been talking runes and been strategizing on projects and runes, but there's been a project on ordinals that I've been consistently more and more fascinated by. And I think it's kind of like a pure, thing of pure interest. I don't have, this motivation that, oh, this means this is going to, moon or this is going to happen or anything, but I've just been more and more compelled by the story behind the Nat Cats. And I hadn't bought an ordinal for quite a while. When I kind of look back at my history, I was like, dude, I've been, kind of runes focused. But as we talked about, I think there's a lot of different opportunities across the space right now. And to look at Magic Eden or some of the marketplaces and see some of the collections that are out there that might not have the biggest mind share right now. Like I decided to jump in and get involved in the Nat Cat world. And I'm super excited about it.
Nice. I know yours, you showed me yesterday, so congratulations. I'm a big fan of Nat Cats and the whole kind of DMT. For me, it's always about, a lot of people in this space say firsts don't matter, but for me, firsts kind of do matter. Like I'm a big subscriber of early inscriptions, and I've got 2 under 1,000 that I love. But Nat Cats to me was the first of the DMTs, and I know there was artwork called Natalia's, which are really cool too. I know Brendan loves those things, but I know yours has a hat. Tell me the right one. Was he pink?
Yeah. I'll get it for you. Hold on.
Well, hold on, because I think I got it. Is that the one?
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it?
So yeah, I'm digging it. Like, I don't know why. It just, you talk sometimes about if things just connect with you or resonate with you. And this is a perfect example of that. Like I've just been kind of dancing around and flirting with them. And then I like the hat. And then I like the fact that it's a first generation. So those are really the only tipping points. And I also like the fact, look at the price. Like it's not super expensive by any means. So when we go to kind of this evolution of what's important to you as a collector, obviously now I'm much more focused on the on-chain, making sure something's purely on-chain, but also I don't fully understand all the intricacies of the DMT, but I'm color me intrigued with, how it generates based on the block number and the attributes are that way. And I think that whenever you can kind of spend time with something that's evolving and is not necessarily the first ever, but part of a different wave of, or a different way of looking at how things can go. Like that's what really kind of captured the imagination.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I know the first thing you said before you got when you're like, well, I'm a dog person. I'm like, well, I am too. And I do like cats, but I'm I've got, he's right behind me here, but I know you've got dogs. I've got dogs. Always had dogs. Grew up with dogs. We all grew up with dogs. But there's something about nat cats being first and the simplicity of them that I love. So congratulations on that purchase.
Yeah, kind of the geometric part of it works really well with the cats. You know, you got the squares and triangles and rectangles, so it all kind of comes together pretty well from that side.
Yeah, not afraid to go. Not afraid to go pink. And
No, I'm evolved.
I love the.
I'm. If it was going to be me, it'd be uber red if it wanted to match my facial coloring.
So when Disco and I first started doing our podcast, he had a camera that literally made his face like Veruca Salt when she ate the like everlasting blueberry thing before she had to be rolled away. But his face was like red as like a crab that's been, it's like right when it gets boiled, it like turns super red right away. That's what Disco looked like. And finally I was like, dude, your lighting sucks. And we finally figured out, no, his camera sucks. It just makes him look like he's like straining his face 100% of the time. So
although I do tend to go on the red side, so it is it's not a far cry, and that's where it tickled some insecurities that I had to dive into and kind of address, which I did. So we're okay.
We'll continue to tickle those insecurities as time goes.
Well, on. They're surface deep. They're not that hard to get to, so they are readily accessible. Wow, I don't know. We had a big list. We had a varied show. It was a lot of different topics. Is there something that we wanted to circle back at, or what's your temperature?
You tell me. You're the keeper of the list. I think we covered all. So you got your new pickup. We got the CC0. No, I think we got it. If anyone has any questions, I'll just put you up here. But someone said, what was the problem with the attack on stacks? They need more time. I have no. I assume you're talking about stacks like the protocol on Bitcoin. I absolutely have no idea how to answer that unless like Nifty or Third Web has some miracle answer that I could pop on the screen. I have no idea. But Aptim, we appreciate you watching the show. And 404 is the future. Love that little PFP, that little Pepe. No, there was no Pandora FUD. Only Pandora was helping us. I guess Eigenlayer to get out. The links weren't even working, and I guess there's a queue where people don't even know when they can get out, but we talked about that for a while, and he posted a link. I just wasn't going to post it just in case. Like, I want nothing to do with Eigenlayer except for to report on it from over here. When I heard about it at first, I just think, to me, double staking seems. Disco, maybe this is a way to finish. I never finished my analogy. So my thing is, staking the queue can get long enough just for staking Ethereum. So if you double stake, to me, that's like the buildings on fire. Like if you're staking Ethereum, like the building's on fire and you're at least on a low floor, like where the elevators don't work, you can like run down the stairs and get out. Like to me, Eigenlayer feels like if anything goes wrong, you're literally like in a secured, locked from the outside, like box in the middle of the top of the building where, you need an hour to like decontaminate before you can run down 82 flights of stairs. Like to me, you could be screwed. And maybe that's a silly way to look at it. Like, cause if ETH goes to zero, like, how quickly could I get out to Coinbase anyway? Cause a lot of people aren't staking, but to me, Eigenlayer just seems silly. And now that I've seen how they paid it out and gave the people who literally sent their money to what I assume is a multi-sig for quote unquote staking or airdrops to get 5%. And oh, by the way, yours is locked, and but all the VCs, theirs can move freely. So it sounds real fair. And the fact that David Ryan, Sean Adams, famous singer from the 80s, doesn't understand why people think these guys have completely lost the plot, and then that's beyond me. So I guess this was a feisty episode, I guess, but we've had that bottled up a while because we had a Bankless episode on why we didn't watch it, and we decided not to air it, and now we're kind of like we're calling things how they are, I guess. Like,
well, it's just that 55-5, like those numbers to me are that I can't get past. If you're going to encourage people to stake and to, go through your analogy, get into the theater or whatever it is and set up shop only to be able to be locked out and then have the other, 55% of folks be able to do what they want and do it. Like it doesn't line up well for me mentally. So, well, I will say that this show is always intended for entertainment purposes only. It is not to be considered financial advice. Please do your own research. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. And, as I say, I kind of want to just do an open call. Like if anybody out there has ideas for, things that we can cover or, any angles that we're not looking at, we know that we can't see everything and we can't see it all and know it all. So please, hit us up, on the socials or in the comments or anything, and we'll be more than receptive, and we'd love to work more stuff into the show. But thank you for paying attention. And as I say, we're trying to create, independent media, and we're trying to, as Blue Toshi said, we're trying to find the best voices and the best folks out there to kind of create this collective of knowledge and interweaving of ideas. So as we look to build that, we'd love to have you guys be part of it. So thanks for your time. And Blue Toshi, you got anything?
Take care, everybody. Have a great week.
All righty. See ya.